everyone. Paul Friends and Josie Dispenza, both are here. Mr. Friends via Zoom with his lawyer, Mr. Gear, and Ms. Dispenza in person with her lawyer, Mr. Otelling. And this is the date and time set for review and effect of the parenting time. There was an order entered on January 24th, granting Mr. Friends supervised parenting time with the review today. I guess somebody want to give me an update on how things are going?
You're right. I have the woman, Shari Anderson, who has been acting as the supervisor for this. She is here today to be able to testify about what happens during the parenting time. She reports there's very little interaction with the minor child, Harley, and with Mr. Friends, that she says he hasn't even picked her up. He just really doesn't have any interaction with this child. She doesn't, I believe, really know who he is, although Miss Dispenza certainly has been supportive. Mr. Friends is not really making the effort to be, I guess, an involved father. I can take testimony from Miss Anderson. She can describe what happens during the visits, but I don't think it's necessarily changed from needing to be in a supervised setting that is in a supportive environment. I would note that Miss Anderson is the grandmother of Miss Dispenza. If there is a different person to supervise, we're certainly open to that, but it does not appear to be advancing consistent with what would be Harley's best interest.
All right, Mr. Greer.
Your Honor, this Mindy from Harmonized Healing has been in contact with Ms. Dispenza, and she just hasn't made any efforts really to set up a visitation schedule with this person. I understand Ms. Anderson might be the supervisor now, but she's also a family member. That's why we wanted this, a neutral person to witness this, and she hasn't cooperated. I have a letter, I don't know if the court has seen it, that indicates it just, there just hasn't been any attempts to get this Harmonized Healing set up, although other than from anyone other than my client. And so, I guess the way I look at it is, we've had supervised visits since January. We were told to do it at this place. It wasn't done. She didn't want to, for some reason, didn't feel compelled to set it up. So, I don't know why we need supervised visitations anymore. This is crazy. She's just going to keep dragging this thing along. She had her opportunity. She didn't take advantage of it. Here we are.
All right, Mr. Otelling, you had a witness you wanted to call?
I do, Your Honor. I would call Shari Anderson. Her name is Charlene Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Stevens, how are you connected to Josie Dispenza?
I am Josie's grandmother.
And you are the great-grandmother then of the minor child, Harley.
That's correct.
And you have been acting as the supervisor for the visits that have been taking place with Mr. Friends?
Yes, most of them.
Can you describe for the court how those visits go?
Well, Paul is a very self-centered person, and a lot of the visit is spent with Paul talking about himself. His interaction with Harley is very minimal. He does tell her during every visit that she's beautiful, but that's about the extent of the conversation, or he'll ask her if she wants to play with something or color with him. But there is no connection between the two. There's no relationship, absolutely no relationship. And Harley is at the point where when her mother drops her off for the visit, Harley starts crying because she knows she's going to see Paul. And I'm sorry, were you saying something? Oh, I thought I heard something. Okay.
So while these visits are going on, you're present when the visits are taking place?
Yeah. Yes, most of them.
And how long are the visits?
They had been 2 hours and Harley was sleeping through at least half of the visit for the 2 hours. So this last week we dropped it down to 1 hour. I was also having physical therapy, so
How old is Harley?
she'll be 2 in June.
So not quite 2 years old. Does it seem that the connection with Harley and Mr. Friends is getting better?
Not really. He seems to be buying her. He brings toys for her at almost every visit. He brings snacks for her that of course kids like. And
Well, that would be a way for him to be able to try to connect. Would you agree?
that would be a way to try to connect. Yes,
And are they age appropriate toys that he brings?
sometimes.
What do
He
you,
brought some sand that was very inappropriate for a toddler. He,
what do you mean by sand? Like,
oh, what was that called?
Like-
Kinetic sand or something like that.
Play-Doh or
But-
something. Like a Play-Doh, yeah.
but
Didn't open it.
her age at 20 months.
She puts everything in her mouth. That
Sure.
was inappropriate. Yeah.
And what about the snacks? Does he bring appropriate snacks for her age?
He's doing better on that now. He started out with cotton candy and something else at one visit, and
Well, that could be a lot of fun.
that could be a lot of fun. Yes.
Get her all wound up and then send her home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But needless to say, the cotton candy wasn't,
Right.
you wouldn't look at that as a appropriate
Well,
snack.
not that something the dentist would like her to have or the doctor.
Do you think the visits need to expand? Be even longer?
Not if Joe's or Harley's going to sleep through them because he's there. And I have checked, Mr. Friends suggested that maybe she was staying up late the night before the visit. So I have asked on multiple occasions, what time she get to bed last night, what time she get up this morning. And she goes to bed early the night before the visits, and she, is fed before she comes, and she's, on a normal schedule, but during the visit, she falls asleep.
And at Harley's age, she still takes naps.
She has one nap a day.
So she's down to one nap a day. Do you know what time she typically naps?
Depends on her level of activity, usually late afternoon.
And what is the time that Mr. Friends has been asking or coming to exercise
He was
parenting time?
doing 4 to 6 for a while, and that cut into his children's playing sports a lot.
His other children?
Yes, and worth mentioning, his other children on 2 different occasions were taken by his wife to emergency. So one visit, he left early to go to emergency because his son had an earache, and then another one, he canceled the visit because his daughter was not feeling well, but my grandson saw her in school later that day. So she wasn't that ill. So he was putting the other children ahead of Harley.
Well, there's been times where he had a scheduled visit and Harley is there for the visit, but he leaves or doesn't exercise the time that was available.
Yes, that's correct.
And when Mr. Friends comes for the visits, he comes by himself. There's no one else there.
That's correct. His wife drops him off and picks him up, but occasionally.
It's scheduled.
Mhm.
And these times that
What were
the
you saying?
visits have been scheduled, you haven't stood in the way when he says, I've got to go do something else. The visit is just canceled or
Yes.
done at that point. What do you think is in Harley's best interest for the visits with Mr. Friends?
I think 1 hour a week maximum. And they definitely have to be supervised with his history
Why do you say that? What,
because he has such a violent history and he has mental issues. He has reported that he's been diagnosed bipolar and
Oh,
borderline.
check, that's hearsay.
did he tell you that?
He told me that.
Okay, Your Honor, I don't believe it'd be hearsay. It's a statement of Yeah, there's an exception. The exception is it's an admission by a party opponent. He made a statement. He's a party to this case, to this witness. I believe it would fall under the exception.
Mr. Greer?
I withdraw that, Your Honor.
All right, the objection to be overruled.
What did you say that he told you that was his mental issues?
He said at the VA, he had been diagnosed with PTSD, with borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder.
And do you recall when he made those admissions?
Oh, early on, it's been a while. I don't recall.
Do you know if he's being treated for those conditions?
According to him, he is. He goes to VA frequently. He sees his counselor.
Do you have any suggestions for who could supervise beside yourself?
This Mindy person that I can't remember the name of the organization, but Paul has regular contact with her, admitted that he gets advice from her and that he contacts her and Rachel from Friend of the Court.
Looking for help on how to parent?
On how to parent, yeah. So I'm not sure they would be appropriate. They would be biased.
We can't have that.
Are you aware of any other agencies or folks that could supervise?
Not really. I have asked friends that are psychologists, social workers, and they don't like to get involved in that.
Now, Stevens, what was your
She
background?
should have been able to be involved in it at all.
I have, I'm a licensed master social worker.
And what did you do as a licensed master social worker? What was your
Well, for
profession?
10 years, I was in private practice as a clinical social worker. Prior to that, I was in the system, child welfare system with Muskegon County and Nuevo County.
And what did you do for Muskegon and Nuevo County in the child welfare system?
Well, Muskegon County, I was supervised child welfare workers. And in Muskegon County, I was a protective services worker. I specialized in child sexual abuse.
So you've got a lot of experience working with children. And do you have concerns professionally for Harley with Mr. Friends?
Yes.
What concerns do you have?
His violence and his history of violence and his lack of contact or of being able to make a connection with Harley.
You're aware that Mr. Friends is on circuit court probation as we speak
Yes,
for domestic violence third?
yes.
Is there anything else relating to Harley that you feel the court should know?
Well, he has a case against him also with, in regards to his abuse of a son.
But did he admit that, or did he tell you that?
Yes, he told me.
When did that happen?
When did it happen?
When did he tell you?
When did he tell me? Wow, it's been a while, probably a year ago.
A year ago.
About the time he had the case against his wife, the last case. It's a pattern of behavior with him. So it was the last time he had the domestic violence against his wife.
Ms. Anderson, I don't have any other questions for you. I'm sure Mr. Greer will have a few.
Sure, any questions?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor. He's being monitored through his probation agent on these, on your concerns, correct? With the abuse?
That's what he says.
You don't believe him?
I have no reason not to believe him if he's on probation. Yeah, I know he has to check in.
All right. Now, when these visitations occur, where's the child usually during these visits?
At the visit,
I mean, where does the child sit?
she sits usually on my lap.
Yeah, so you're holding this child, is that correct?
excuse me, I wasn't finished. I ask her if she wants to get down and she doesn't. Every time I've asked, she does not want to get down.
Did yesterday, we played golf.
So the child sits in your lap, correct?
Correct.
And do you think that's appropriate when we're trying to establish a bond between her father and her?
She seems afraid of him.
Well, I understand that. That's why there's supervised parenting. Shouldn't you let the child go and be with him?
I've tried to get her to get down.
Shouldn't be holding it.
And what happened?
She doesn't want down. If I let her down, she turns around and wants back up or starts crying.
Okay, well, okay, so you are the child's great grandmother, correct?
Correct.
So you're a little bit biased with this situation, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
All right, and that's why we wanted it to be at this harmonized healing with this Mindy, and that never occurred. Did you find that to be odd?
No, I think Mindy, according to Paul, has done what he considers some giving advice, counseling type activity. She's not qualified for that.
Right there.
Look,
I gave the court that before.
just, okay. All right. So it's safe to say that you, if the visitation is going to be called short or cut short, that is your call or Paul's call or whose call?
Well, Paul calls it off when his children go to.
How often did he call it off?
He called it off about 4 times.
His kids went to the doctors 4 times?
No, his kids went to emergency for an earache twice.
4 times.
Twice. 2 other times he called. One other time he called it off because he said he had kidney stones, and another time he said he was sick.
Okay. Did your granddaughter ever call it off? Well, let me put it this way. Your
When
granddaughter
Harley
called.
had the croup, excuse me, when Harley had the croup, she called it off.
Any other times?
That I'm aware of.
Okay, and
She tried to call it off when her father lost his job, and Paul wouldn't let her
why would that be appropriate to call it off? Because her father lost his job.
because her father was trying to process the job loss, and he really wasn't up to supervising a visit.
I thought you were the supervisor.
Her dad does occasionally too.
Why didn't you step up and do it?
I don't. I prefer not to be alone with Mr. Friends
Okay.
because of his
Would you
history.
would you prefer it to be at the Harmonized Healing Counseling Center?
No,
You don't want it there?
no, she's biased. Mr. Friends seems to be manipulating her.
How many times have
Getting
you met
advice
her?
from her.
How many times have
Me?
you met her?
Once. She's a very kind, nice person. She's just not qualified to give advice or be counseling him.
Well, what kind of advice and counseling is she giving him?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask him that.
Well, you're the one who's testifying that she's doing it. You must know.
He told me he asked her and Rachel.
But you don't know what it was?
Questions frequently. He says he texts them frequently.
But you don't know what the texts are about, or you've never heard him talk to her about
I
anything?
did not ask to see them. I'm sorry, I did not.
Yeah, but you're giving an opinion that she's biased.
If he said he's getting advice and texting them frequently.
And you think that that's, without knowing what he's contacting her about, you think that's inappropriate?
Someone that is supposed to be, you know,
Be
unbiased
careful.
is
Uh-huh.
getting information from him according to his ability to sway her his way.
And now you're just making stuff up. You have no
No, I'm
idea
not.
the content of any of those statements, do you?
I know the content of Mr. Friend's ability.
All right,
to
you know something,
manipulate
Judge?
people.
Judge, she's talking about bias. I don't have any more questions.
So ma'am, if you don't know the content of their conversations, how do you know that there's a level of bias or that she's unqualified to give advice if you don't know what they're talking about?
I know that he convinced my granddaughter at 15 to have sex. And I know that he
Okay,
has
that's a
convinced
totally
her to
separate-
let him into the room.
Okay, but that's a totally separate issue. How do you know that Ms. Mensch is somehow biased, or Ms. Herman for that matter, or that they're giving him inappropriate information if you don't know the content of the information?
I said I didn't see the text, but that he would give information during during the visit about things she had said. And I asked where he got that information. He said from Mindy,
All right, so you said the child has a late afternoon nap time?
usually.
All right, so why were the visits scheduled from 4 to 6?
Well, they're 12 to 1 or 12 to 2.
But they were, for a while, they were coinciding with the child's nap time?
They were coinciding with when her father was available.
Okay, so were you surprised then that the child slept? part of the visit?
She's still sleeping through though, earlier in the day.
This
And she cries when he comes in the room.
All right, thank you. Mr. O'Telling, any other evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Greer, any evidence?
No, Your Honor. Your Honor, one thing, did the court get that letter dated 3/17 from this Mindy Mintz?
I don't read anything I get unless
Oh,
somebody
okay.
attempts to introduce it as an exhibit.
Yeah,
All
I don't
right.
have it.
It was, I sent 2 here and I sent 1 to front of the court, Mitchell, and to the circuit.
Friend of the court might have gotten it. I'm saying I didn't get it. I don't get what friend of the court.
Very well, that's
You
fine.
guys introduce it at a hearing.
That's fine.
All right, Mr. O'Telling, any final comments?
Your Honor, we would request that the supervision continue. I don't know this Mindy gal. I didn't get any correspondence or letter from her. I am not aware of any other service that can provide the supervision for the parenting time. But based on the testimony of Ms. Anderson, I do believe that it should continue. The court is aware of his
I don't want any-
history and the fact that he's continues to be on circuit court probation for domestic violence. Do not believe that it's in this child's best interest to go to an unsupervised setting.
Got what?
I also have concerns.
This is
that
all conversations.
His wife is, there have been a number of challenges with her and Miss Dispenza, and not sure where he would exercise his parenting time. I believe last time he said that they were separated, and she's the one who is transporting him to the visitation when it takes place, and have significant concerns for this child being around Mr. Friends' spouse going forward. So I don't believe that
Yeah, there's no.
it's in this child's interest, in her best interest,
You
to
and
go
her?
to an unsupervised parenting time.
I-
And I would ask that the court continue supervised parenting time going forward.
Mr. Greer, any comments?
Your Honor, I'm looking at the order from January 24th, and it says review hearing in 2 months on 3/24/23 at 1:15. Visitation at Mindy Mintz Harmonized Healing. That never happened. My client was in contact with this Mindy Mintz to make sure that they were available for the parenting time. He offered to pay for it. And the mother just simply didn't do it, didn't want to do it. And there's a reason why she didn't want to do it, because of witnesses like Mrs. Anderson, who obviously is very unbiased. And supervised parenting time is, I don't know, I personally, you know, it was ordered and we agreed to it because of the situation that he's in and the fact that he hadn't been able to bond with this child. The mother kept him away. And so she continues to fight this. She continues to thwart the orders of the court. And quite frankly, my position is my client is capable of taking care of this child. Give us the friend of the court parenting time for a child between 1 and 2, and she'll be fine.
All right, I'll read my notes, digest this information, and issue a written recommendation for proposed order. You should get that sometime next week.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can I get my legal?
And Your Honor, when I looked at the notice for today or the order, I wasn't sure it was via Zoom. It just said hearing, so that was the
Olivia
reason.
Clark and Colin Hoy, and both are here. And this was a date and time set to review the parenting time that was ordered. Motion had been filed and hearing was held on February 14th, I want to say, 13th maybe. And order was entered whereby the plaintiff would have the child Sunday at 5 to Thursday at 5. Defendant would have Thursday at 5 to Sunday at 5 each week. I guess, how's that been going?
It's been managed roughly.
Managed roughly. Okay. Tell me what that means.
There's been times, I mean, I get out of late work, so I do pick up the kids late. A couple times, you know, she's come to get the kids late. Current issue would probably be that the last few weekends it's been asked that I drop the kids off. And I was able to do that one weekend as I had business out there otherwise. So I was able to make the stop. I had to refuse last weekend and she managed to make it here. And then she also asked me yesterday when I picked the kids up to come pick them up Sunday. And I did let her know that I do not have the gas to bring them back this weekend.
Okay. So, you were supposed to pick the children up on Thursdays and she's supposed to pick them up on Sundays.
Yes.
Okay. So you're modifying that a little bit, it sounds like.
I've only done so once just because I had to be out there anyways. I have family that lives out that way that asked me to do some favors for them.
All right.
You need to go, bud.
I guess other than
Okay, go sit.
other than a snafu with the
Go sit for a second, okay?
other than that snafu, how's the schedule itself been going?
The schedule's been all right.
Okay.
For the most part. Yeah, I mean,
Ma'am, would you agree that the schedule itself is adequate at this point?
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is if we could meet halfway for pickup and drop off.
Does that work better for you, sir?
I mean, it wouldn't matter. It'd probably be less gas on me regardless. I drive a 10 mile a gallon truck, whereas she's got a car that gets about 20.
Right, but either way, you'd be driving the same each time. I mean, either you're driving all the way one time or you're driving halfway 2 times. I mean, it comes out to be the same amount of mileage.
The first half is all highway for me versus back road, so it saves me a little bit of gas. It'll be all highway driving for me.
What's the halfway point?
We'd actually have to look at it. It'd probably be somewhere on M120.
So neither of your addresses are confidential, so you both know where each other live?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Norton Shores and Nuevo, basically?
Yep.
So, ma'am, ma'am, you're out in the Croton area?
Yeah,
All right, and sir, you're down in Norton Shores area?
Yes.
I don't know, if you want to meet like just a street corner, that's one thing, but usually like need like a parking lot or something.
I'm sure we could look into the route and coordinate an area.
All right. So this started as a custody motion under your current agreement. I think it's off by 1 day, but I would probably recommend an order for joint legal and joint physical custody. Is that sound reasonable?
yeah,
Joint legal custody would mean that the two of you would have to consult and confer on important decisions regarding your children. Usually that comes down to medical care and education. Understand that?
Okay. Yep.
yep,
Joint physical is a recognition that of where the children live and that they would spend an relatively equal amount of time with both of you. Okay.
Okay.
The parenting time, it appears, is working as is. Have you been able to? Maybe there haven't been any holidays. What do you think about holidays? Can the two of you agree on holidays, or would you want the court to impose a schedule, or what do you think?
That's something that might take a little bit of work. Desmond, I need you to be quiet for a second. So it'd be something we'd probably have to talk about a little bit between us. I need you to go play.
We do have
I need you to go play. I
will
get you. Go.
We do have a reasonable parenting time policy that sets forth a holiday schedule. It's relatively equal each year between the parties, a split of holidays, and then it flip-flops year after year, so that the holidays you didn't have one year, you would have the next year, and it divides up the like the Christmas break and things like that when the kids are school age and whatnot. I could put that in as a default, so you could agree on holidays if you wanted to, but if you couldn't agree, then you would look to that for holiday parenting time.
Sure. Bye. I need you to go.
That sound reasonable?
At you.
yeah.
I see there's a support hearing coming up on the 5th. Anything else for today, though?
Nope.
I think that'll be it.
Okay. That order will be entered then for joint legal custody, joint physical custody, maintain the current parenting time schedule. Holidays as agreed. If you didn't agree on a holiday, you'd look to the reasonable parenting time policy as a backup for that holiday. And then you'll meet halfway at a mutually agreeable location for exchanges. Okay?
Yep.
All right. There are certain provisions that are supposed to be in custody and parenting time orders. I think they were probably already put in that order that I did. Maybe not. Anyway, neither of you with joint legal custody are to move more than 100 miles away or out of state with the children without the permission from the other party or an order of the court. Neither of you are to say anything or do anything, allow others to say anything around the kids that would cause the kids to have disrespect for the other parent. You're to keep your addresses current with the friend of the court. And there's one about the Hague Convention. The Hague Convention is a parental kidnapping statute, and that's required to be in all parenting time orders. Basically, that means that a bunch of countries got together and they agree that if a parent attempts to hide out in that country with the child, they'll get the child back to where the child's supposed to go. So ultimately, you're free to go on vacation wherever you want, except that if your travel destination includes a non-Hague Convention country, you'd have to get the permission from the other party to go to that country. Most countries that are common travel destinations are part of it, but there have been a couple that have come up over the years that are not. All right.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for today?
Nope.
Okay. You guys should be all set. I'll do that order. You'll get it within a few